We think of them as GOATs. Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, the two greatest footballers who ever lived, worshipped by billions, worth hundreds of millions, endless trophies, endless glory. But here's the truth almost nobody tells you. Neither of them should have made it. One of them was told, as a small boy, that he would never even grow to a normal height. The other survived a heart condition that could have killed him on the pitch, and grew up watching his own father slowly drink himself to death. Behind those two perfect careers is a mountain of pain most people have never heard. This is the story of what Messi and Ronaldo really went through. Let's start with Cristiano Ronaldo. Today he's one of the richest athletes in human history, but he was born in 1985 on the small Portuguese island of Madeira, into real poverty. His family lived in a tiny, tin-roofed house, and young Cristiano shared a single cramped bedroom with his three siblings. His mother, Dolores, worked as a cook and a cleaner just to keep food on the table. Money was so tight that she later admitted, heartbreakingly, that when she was pregnant with him, she had even considered not going through with the pregnancy because they were so poor and already had too many mouths to feed. The greatest goal scorer in history almost wasn't born at all. And then there was his father. José Diniz Aveiro was a soldier who came home from a brutal colonial war, traumatized, unemployed, and broken. He slid into a lifelong battle with alcoholism. Ronaldo has spoken about this with painful honesty. He said he never truly knew his own father, that they never once sat down and had a normal, proper conversation, because his dad was always drinking. There are even accounts that his father, desperate for money to fund his addiction, would sell the football shirts Cristiano brought home. Imagine that. The boy is out there fighting for a future, and his hero, his dad, is disappearing in front of his eyes. To chase that future, Ronaldo had to leave everything behind. At just 12 years old, he moved hundreds of miles away from his family, alone, to join Sporting Lisbon's academy. And it was miserable. He was crushingly homesick, a little boy crying for his mother in a strange city. The other kids mocked him relentlessly for his thick Madeiran accent and his poor background. He was an outsider, but instead of breaking him, that loneliness lit a fire. He poured every ounce of his pain into training, staying out longer than everyone, working harder than everyone. The obsession that would one day make him a legend was born out of a homesick, bullied child with nothing else to hold on to. Then, at 15, came the moment that nearly ended it all before it began. Doctors discovered Ronaldo had a serious heart condition, tachycardia, a racing, irregular heartbeat. It was so dangerous that there were real doubts he could ever play football professionally again. This is the sport that would define his entire life, and his own heart was threatening to take it away. He underwent surgery, a laser procedure to fix it, and thank God it worked. Days later, he was back in training. But think about how close it came. The greatest athlete of a generation almost stopped at 15 by his own heart, and the pain didn't stop once the fame arrived. In 2005, when Ronaldo was just 20 and beginning to shine at Manchester United, his father's body finally gave out. José died of liver failure caused by his alcoholism at only 52 years old. Ronaldo flew him to London to try to save him, but it was too late. His father never got to see him become the icon he is today. Years later, in an interview, Ronaldo broke down in tears and said the words that still haunt fans. "My father, he saw nothing. He died young. All that greatness, and the one man he wanted to prove it to was gone before it truly began. And even at the very peak of his life, tragedy found him again." In 2022, Ronaldo and his partner were expecting twins. But during the birth, their baby boy did not survive. In the middle of unimaginable wealth and success, the most famous man in football had to bury his newborn son. It was a devastating reminder that no amount of money, fame, or trophies can shield anyone from real human grief. Now, the other half of this story, because Lionel Messi's childhood pain was just as heavy, only in a completely different way. Messi was born in 1987 in Rosario, Argentina, into a hard-working, modest family. His father a factory steelworker, his mother a part-time cleaner. And from the beginning, everyone could see the boy was magic with a ball. There was just one enormous problem. He wasn't growing. At the age of 11, Messi was diagnosed with a rare condition called growth hormone deficiency. His body simply wasn't producing enough of the hormone he needed to grow. He was tiny, far smaller than every other boy his age, and doctors warned that without treatment, he might never reach a normal height. For a kid who dreamed of being a footballer, it was a death sentence for that dream. The treatment existed, but it was brutal. Every single night, little Leo Messi had to inject growth hormone into his own legs. A child, pushing a needle into his own thighs, night after night, just for a chance at a future. And that treatment was expensive. around $1,000 every single month. His family simply could not afford it for long. His boyhood club in Argentina helped for a while, then stopped. Other big Argentine clubs admired his talent but refused to pay for a small, sick boy's medicine. His dream was dying, not because he wasn't good enough, but because his family was too poor. Then came the moment that saved football history. Barcelona, thousands of miles away in Spain, invited him for a trial. He was so good that their director, terrified of losing him, offered a contract on the spot, famously scribbling it onto a paper napkin, with one crucial promise: Barcelona would pay for all of Messi's treatment. But saying yes came at a cruel price. At just 13, Messi had to move to a foreign country. And soon after, his parents and siblings returned home to Argentina, leaving him almost completely alone in Barcelona. He couldn't speak the local language. He was so painfully shy and withdrawn that his teammates genuinely believed he was mute, because he barely said a word. He cried himself to sleep for months, a homesick boy in an empty apartment, carrying the weight of his whole family's sacrifice on his tiny shoulders. The most gifted player his coaches had ever seen sat silent and alone in the corner of the dressing room. There was one person who had always believed in him more than anyone: his grandmother, Celia. She was the one who marched up to a coach when Leo was too small and demanded they let him play. She was at every game, every training session. But she died when Messi was just 10 years old, before she could ever see what he became. That's why, to this day, every single time Lionel Messi scores a goal, he points both hands to the sky. He's pointing to her. And even after he became the best on earth, Messi's pain wasn't over. For years, his own country turned on him. He lost final after final with Argentina, a World Cup final, back-to-back Copa America finals. After missing a penalty in one of those defeats in 2016, a devastated, weeping Messi announced he was quitting the national team altogether, crushed by the criticism from the very people he was trying to make proud. The greatest player alive, ready to walk away, because the heartbreak was too much. Thankfully, he came back, and in 2022, he finally lifted the World Cup, the trophy that had broken his heart for 2 decades. So look at these two boys again. One, born into poverty, with a father lost to addiction, who nearly died at 15, and lost both his dad and his newborn son. The other, a tiny, sick child injecting himself every night, shipped off alone to a foreign land, crying himself to sleep, doubted by his own country. Neither of them was handed a thing. Both of them, at multiple points, could have, maybe should have, given up. That is the secret behind Messi and Ronaldo. It was never just talent, it was pain, loss, and loneliness, forged over 20 years into the 2 greatest careers football has ever seen. We call them GOATs. But their real greatness is that they were just 2 broken kids who refused to quit.